The sponsor of my stream and podcast is DistroKid. If you want 7% off on your first subscription with DistroKid, release your music to the world on every major music platform. Make sure to go to my website, andrewvanzark.com, and click on the discount link under the tab of DistroKid. Attention Sarkarians, embark on a cosmic journey at www.andrewvanzark.com, saving by clicking on our affiliate tab. Discounts await. Your click not only unlocks deals, but supports the beats and discussions of these stellar radio stations.
Galactic ChatWave Radio.
Join the Sith and let the unlimited power of the discounts await you in the shopping. And for you musicians to get a discount on DistroKid, www.andrewvanzark.com, your portal to savings. May the discounts be with you. The information on this podcast is my opinion and some internet research.
This is a communication channel. We're picking up a faint but persistent signal.
Greetings, spacefarers. This is Andrew Van Zark, coming to you live from Galactic ChatWave Radio, broadcasting from the far reaches of the station's gamma ray. Settle in, grab a cup of Rocked Gino, and get ready for a stellar transmission.
As you all know, we have ourselves acquaintance with Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm excited, I'm ready, and I'm up and running for all the things that matter. So, if any of you are interested to get yourself attuned, I know that I am a Star Wars fan. I'm slowly getting into all this stuff that has to do with simply just that, Star Trek. And I did see a majority of the original series, and I have also seen a majority of Space Nine. So I am a little bit acquainted with Star Trek. I've read Q and Law on Audible. I'm in the midst of reading Federation and books from Discovery. So I'm actually getting myself into a lot of the Star Trek stuff, meaning that this radio show will start incorporating a lot of Star Trek stuff. And today is none other of my first impressions with Star Trek The Next Generation encounter at Farpoint. Hope that you all are doing great and that you are all understanding everything that has to do with my show. So let's get ourselves started here. Let's just start here a little bit and get ourselves acquaintance a little bit with everything that has to do with, The Next Generation. So this first episode, Encounter of Farpoint, has two parts. It's one of the longest episodes of the first season, if I'm not mistaken. So Captain Jean-Luc Picard leads the crew of the USS Enterprise D on its maiden voyage to examine a new planetary station for trade with the Federation. On the way, they encounter Q, an omnipotent extra-dimensional being who challenges humanity as a barbaric, inferior species. Picard and his new crew must hold off Q's challenge and solve the puzzle of Farpoint Station on Deneb's 4, a base that is far more than it seems to be. And it's the series premiere. This is how the series started. And once you click play, you have the iconic line that every Star Trek is known for about the far reaches of the galaxy, where no man has gone before. So this has a few acts that we can divide the Act 1, Act 2, 3, up to Act 10, So let's get ourselves started here with the Act 1. So before we get started, actually, I wanted to let you know that as a Star Wars fan, knowing that Star Wars has a lot of action, and this is more slow, this has more philosophical moments, more talking, more diplomacy. We are more focused on space travel and space battle instead of just, people fighting on foot and using, regular weapons that every sci-fi film has seen. No, this is just spaceships. They battle. They do some, extremely high-tech stuff, and that's it. And my impression has been that it's more philosophical than just pure action in space, which I'm actually enjoying, because one of the things I like about Star Wars, besides the space battles and the battles and seeing all the Jedi and the Sith whack each other, is hearing all those quotes that happen throughout the whole films and TV shows and video games and comics and books that actually give me an inspiration that I can actually use when it comes to daily life. And I like that. I like being questioned about things, This first episode really questions of the way that humans are, how barbaric we are, Humans have throughout time solved things in such a barbaric way that I wouldn't understand why would that be a good thing, I think that being barbaric like that is not a good thing, It's not what I would portray as a good thing, So that being said, that being put in the table, let's get ourselves started with Act 1. So Captain's Log, Stardate 41153.7. Our destination is planet Deneb 4, beyond which lies the great unexplored mass of the galaxy. My orders are to examine Farpoint, a starbase built there by the inhabitants of that world. Meanwhile, I'm becoming better acquainted with my new command. This Galaxy-class USS Enterprise. I am still somewhat in awe of its size and complexity. As for my crew, we are short in several key positions, most notably a first officer, but I'm informed that a highly experienced man, one Commander William Riker, will be waiting to join the ship at our Deneb 4 destination. So, this episode takes place in the year 2364. Captain Jean-Luc Picard has assumed command of the new starship, the Galaxy-class USS Enterprise D, which, as a side note, it's the one that I actually own since I was a kid, and I never checked that it was a Star Trek spacecraft until the pandemic happened a few years ago. And now that I know that how the different USS Enterprise portrayed and placed and all that, we can clearly have the idea that they are simply divided by letters A, D, B, C, and all that kind of stuff, And I'm actually quite intrigued about that. Damn it. So let's get ourselves back into track here with things, as you have seen and everyone has enjoyed so far, with all the different types of the enterprises that they are. The 5th Federation starship to bear the name Enterprise. The vessel is about to embark on its first mission to Deneb 4, beyond which lies the great unexplored mass of the galaxy. Picard, in his log, notes that he is impressed with the size and complexity of the ship as he walks through the Enterprise, surveying engineering, then finally enters the bridge managed by Technical Officer Lieutenant Natasha Yar, Lieutenant Worf, Counselor Dina Troy, and Lieutenant Commander Data, which so far, Data for me has been like the most intriguing character so far, and Worf being second. Commander Picard, I'm not going to count him as an intriguing character just for the fact that it's a given. I've seen so many clips of Picard before, and I think that Picard is a given. You're going to enjoy Picard. Like, it's undoubtable. You're going to enjoy Picard. It's no, not a big question there, So Picard continues with his log, in which he reports that the ship is en route to Farpoint Station, and that the ship is short in several key positions, most notably a first officer. But Picard is informed that a very experienced officer, one William T. Riker, will fill the position. So that is a thing that we have to keep in mind. We have this various different computers coming here to play, So Picard sits at the captain's chair and makes an offhand command on how Starfleet wants the crew of the Enterprise to snoop around Farpoint Station, to which Data makes an inquiry into the definition of the word snoop, which I find that really interesting, that he would be like, what is snoop? Like snooping and all that kind of stuff, Data did not know what the word meant, even though Data is a walking encyclopedia. So Picard wonders how Data, a complex android with encyclopedic knowledge, does not know the meaning of a basic word like snoop. Data responds that he possibly was not designed to emulate this type of human behavior. Picard says that it means to spy, to sneak. Data responds, to seek covertly, to go stealthily, to slink, slither, creep, skulk, pussyfoot, gum. Yes, Picard interjects, to which Data finishes, shoes. Suddenly, Counselor Troy senses a powerful mind. The ship goes to red alert, with the family alert sound blaring through the bridges. So then, Con Officer Lieutenant Torres reports that there is something strange on his detector circuit. A large field begins to appear in front of the Enterprise, which reads a solid Picard, which reached a solid. Picard calls for Yar to turn off that damned noise and go to yellow alert. Picard orders Helm to make the ship come to a full stop. Soon after, controls read full stop. A white light shines on the bridge, and a humanoid emerges dressed from 16th century Europe. Picard asks the being to identify itself. The being notes that he is called Q and walks around the bridge, while Torres discreetly takes a hand phaser out from the bottom of his console. Q, however, senses this and freezes Torres before he can fire. Q, after showing his ability, warns the crew of the Enterprise to go back to Earth, where they shall most certainly die. At this point in time, a lot has happened. And we're still starting off. We're still starting off. At this point, we're going to Act 2, but a lot has happened so far. So, quoting here, Captain's Log, supplementary. The frozen form of Lieutenant Torres has been rushed to sick bay. The question now is the incredible power of the Q being. Do we dare oppose it? So later, Q changes into many costumes of Earth eras, including the late 20th century in the guise of United States Marine Corps. Captain, actually, the issue at stake, it's patriotism. We must go back to your world and put an end to the commies. All it takes are a few good men. Picard tells Q that kind of nonsense is centuries behind them. Q brings up that Picard cannot deny that humans are dangerous, savage child race, which Picard denies, saying that humans have made rapid progress in only a few centuries. Q then changes again, thinking Picard and his crew will be able to identify with the period that the next embodies that of a soldier in the late 21st century, where Q notes that humans learn to control their militaries through drugs. The other officers, not amused with Q's behavior, attempt to make him leave, but Q keeps on heaping disapproval on humans. Noting that when they finally reached deep space, they found enemies to fight out there as well, which Q says is, quoting here, the same old story all over again. Picard says that Q is the same old story they have been seeing. Self-righteous being who persecute and judge for things they can't understand nor tolerate. Q notes that, quoting here, persecute and judge is an interesting concept and asks, suppose it turns out we understand you humans all too well. Picard says he does not fear the facts, and Q seems to take this as a suggestion. He then says that there are preparations to make, but notes that he will be back and will proceed the way Picard suggests. So Picard, who gets many suggestions from his senior staff, orders that no station on the ship will make audio transmissions, only printouts, in an attempt to catch Q off guard, with Picard noting, quoting here, let's see what this Galaxy-class starship can do. Picard orders Worf to head down to engineering and have them prepare for maximum acceleration. Picard also asks Data if it's possible to perform a saucer separation as a high warp velocity. Data notes that the separation is indivisible, as any warp speed. It is theoretically possible, but there can be no margin for error. Worf returns from engineering with the report that the engine room is ready and takes his position at the helm. Picard orders engage, and the ship turns away from Q's force field and warps away. So the entire force field collapses into a ball and heads towards the Enterprise. The object is at high warp speed, at warp 9.6, and the Enterprise increases speed accordingly. However, and hear me out, the object is increasing speed. Data notes that the Enterprise may be able to match the object's 9.8 warp, but at extreme risks. However, the object reaches warp 9.9, while the Enterprise is only at warp 9.5. Picard, seeing no other alternative, calls out to the entire ship, now, hear this. Print out message. Urgent, all stations, all deck. Prepare for emergency saucer set. The bridge officers are shocked at this new order. Picard orders Worf to command the saucers section, while Picard commands the battle section. Worf stands up from his con station and tells Picard, I am a Klingon, sir. For me to speak escape when my captain goes into battle. To which Picard bluntly overrules him and reminds him that he is a Starfleet officer. Worf grudgingly agrees. Picard, Dar, Tori, and Data take the bridge emergency turbo lift to the battle bridge. So moving on to Act 3, quoting here from Act 3, Captain's Log, Stardate 41153.7, preparing to dispatch saucer section so that families and the majority of the ship's company can seek relative safety, while the vessel's star drive, containing the battle bridge and main armaments, will turn back and confront the mystery that is threatening us. So, the Enterprise corridors are filled with crew members and families leaving the Stardate section to the saucers section. Picard, Data, Yar, and Troy enter the battle bridge, which Chief Miles O'Brien, meaning the con. First, Picard orders that Yar fires photon torpedoes towards the object. Yar complies and torpedoes are away. Shortly after, Picard orders that the countdown to saucer separation begin. Data counts down, and the ship star drive section arrives to see the torpedoes hit the optics. So, however, it has no effect, and the point being that the detonation of the torpedoes masked the gateways of the saucer section. Picard asks Troy to send out messages in all languages that they surrender, and then the star drive section is soon encompassed by a sphere-shaped force field, and bright white light surrounds the battle bridge. Picard, Troy, and Data and Yar are taken to a World War III style courtroom, where Troy reveals that everything that is happening is real. Even the soldiers with lethal weapons. The magistrate orders everyone in the courtroom to stand as the judge enters. The judge revealed to be Q, who charges humanity of being a grievous savage race, to which Yar is unable to control her anger and starts to berate Q, and saying that she comes from a world where a similar chord, quote unquote, was commonplace, and that it took place like her Starfleet comrades to save her from such atrocities. So, by this point in time, Q then freezes Yar, then the same way he did with Torres, and they were all outraged, and specifically Picard, Picard was really mad and outraged, and demanded that Q upholds his promise that the prisoners will not be harmed, and thaw out Yar, which he does much to the crowd's displeasure. Picard pleads not guilty to Q's charges. Q does not take kindly to this and has two soldiers aim their weapons at Data and Troy, ordering them to push the triggers if Picard says anything other than guilty. So at this point in time, we enter Act 4, and Picard forced into a tight spot amidst that there is indeed evidence to support the court's contention that humans have been savage. Therefore, he asks Q to test the crew of the Enterprise to see if this is percently true of humans. Q is fascinated by this idea and tells Picard that the Farpoint station will be an excellent site for this test. Picard with his crew and transported back to the battle bridge, where O'Brien has been there the entire time. And O'Brien claims that he has heard that Farpoint is a rather dull place, but Picard hears that it might be rather interesting, And at this point in time when we get to see Farpoint, and we are in this place where things seems to be a little sketchy, Things seem to be, appearing out of nowhere, and then Riker is like, something's not quite right. I don't think this is right. We have to further investigate. And he tries to tell the doctor, but the doctor is like, if we want to check, we'll check. But she was kind of hesitant. She didn't want to really comply with whatever Riker had to say, So quoting here, personal log, Commander William Riker, stardate 41153.7. The USS Hood has dropped me off at Farpoint Station, where I await the arrival of the new USS Enterprise, to which I have been assigned as first officer. Meanwhile, I've been asked to visit the Farpoint's administrator's office in the old city. So at this point on Deneb 4, Commander William T. Riker walks to Grappler Sorn's office, which, in my opinion, I think Grappler Sorn is up to no good. Up to no good. Riker has just been dropped off by the USS Hood for his new assignment. He talks with Sorn for a while, and Sorn asks him if he would like a piece of fruit off of his desk. Riker looks for an apple, but cannot find one. Then, out of nowhere, a bowl of apples suddenly shows up on Sorn's desk, which Riker swears could not have been there 2 seconds ago. Sorn assures him that it has been there for the whole time. Riker then leaves eating the apple, while Sorn, alone in his office, says, "You have been told not to do that. It will arouse their suspicion, and if that happens, we'll have to punish you. We will, I promise you." And at this point, meanwhile at Farpoint Station, Riker meets up at Farpoint's mall with the beautiful Dr. Beverly Crusher and her son, Wesley, who is eagerly anticipating joining the Enterprise. Riker asks Dr. Crusher if there is something useful they can do while they wait for the ship to arrive. For example, this could be a thing. Riker tells Crusher about the apple incident at Sorn's office, which Dr. Crusher dismisses as Riker attempting to pull favor with the captain. As she is shopping, she sees a purple bolt and says that gold would look great on it. Then 5 seconds later, a gold pattern appears on the fabric. Dr. Crusher later apologizes to Riker and that she looks forward to meeting Picard, which Riker wonders if she knows the captain. Wesley solemnly tells Riker that when he was a child, Picard brought his father's body back to them. Dr. Crusher notes that it was a long time ago and ends the conversation. Riker tells Wesley that he'll see him on board. So Riker then meets up with the blind Starfleet officer, Lieutenant Geordi LaForge, who makes an official report that the Enterprise has arrived. But, hear me out, with the star drive section only, and that Captain Picard has requested his presence. Riker taps his comm badge and is beamed up to the Enterprise. Now moving on to Act 5, once aboard, the commanders is greeted with and by Lieutenant Yar, who escorts him to the battle bridge. Riker arrives and it's not greeted warmly by Picard, who tells him to watch the video recording of Q, so he'll know what the ship is facing. Picard leaves the bridge for the ready room and asks Riker to enter once he is done watching the recording. Riker enters and Picard asks him to perform a manual docking of the star drive section of the saucer section. A difficult task, if I might say so myself, So the saucer section enters orbit on Deneb 4, ready for reconnection. Riker asks O'Brien to adjust the pitch angle, then assures with the star drive's velocity being 0. It is inertia should finish the job, So Riker orders the lockup of the star drive and saucer, and thus the Enterprise is successfully reconnect. In the ship's conference lounge, Picard discusses with Riker how during an incident on the planet Altair 3, he refuses to let Captain Roberto de Soto of the USS Hood be down to the planet seeing that a captain's life could be in danger. Picard tests him by suggesting that Riker doesn't respect a captain's authority, which Riker denies, only to state that preserving a captain's life takes priority over obeying his orders. Picard asked him if he intends to back down from that policy. Riker confidently says, "No, sir," confident in Riker's loyalty. Picard proceeds to express his discomfort with the substantial number of families, and particularly children aboard the Enterprise, which I found that hilarious. Like, he doesn't want to have nothing with families and whatnot, but then he says, "But then again, I got a family here with all this children aboard the Enterprise." It's kind of silly, if you ask me. Really silly. To which Riker agrees. Then Captain Picard formally welcomes Riker on board the Enterprise and shakes his hand. At this point, Riker enters the bridge of the Enterprise for the first time when he inquires to LT Worf, Lieutenant Worf, as to the location of Lieutenant Commander Data. Worf reports that Data is on special assignment, having escorted an admiral around the ship for the whole day, who arrives on the Enterprise to inspect the new vessel's medical layout. Data is now in the process of transferring the Admiral to the Hood via shuttlecraft. When asked why the Admiral couldn't have just beamed over instead, Worf responds, "Well, I suppose he could have, sir, but the Admiral is a rather remarkable man." In a corridor later on, Admiral Leonard McCoy claims that Data wanted his atoms scattered all over space. However, hear me out, Data claims that with his age, he should not have to bother with the time and trouble of shuttlecraft. McCoy stops walking and asks Data, "What about my age?" Data apologizes. If the subject of his age bothers McCoy, quoting here, "troubles me, what's so damn troublesome about not having died?" McCoy exclaims. The Admiral then asks Data just how old he thinks he is. Data reports quickly that he is 137 years old. According to Starfleet records, McCoy wonders how he can remember that so exactly. Data replies that he remembers everything he is exposed to. So McCoy sarcastically says that Data may not have pointed ears, but that he sounds like a Vulcan, only to claim that the Vulcans as an advanced and respected race, But in a way, Vulcans left their emotions elsewhere, And at this point in time, Vulcans like to do things more through the logical sense instead of through emotions or strategies and stuff like that, Even though I digress, sometimes Spock and other Vulcans have done different things throughout the history of Star Trek. We can see that they're not always logical, but they try to be as logical as possible. No emotions. So McCoy replies here and says, they are, and damn annoying at times. While continuing to walk down the corridor, McCoy tells Data to treat the Enterprise like a lady, and that she will respond by always bringing him and the crew home. The Enterprise is like the most prized possession for the Starfleet. We need to keep it at optimal conditions at all times. And understanding how it works, understanding how we can drive the USS Enterprise, we'll be able to fulfill any mission that has been, thrown to the Starfleet's side. So moving on now here to Act 6. Later on the bridge, Q appears on the Enterprise main view screen and tells Picard that his time is running out. Worf reacts by pointing a phaser at him, but Picard restrains him, pointing out that he would be shooting the view screens instead of Q himself. Picard states that they will proceed the same regards of Q's involvement, stating that if we're going to demand, let's be damned for what we really are. So at this point, we have another personal log, which we can quote here. Personal log, stardate 41153.8. Of the 24 hours Q allotted us to prove ourselves, 11 have now passed without incident, and yet I cannot forget Q's prediction that we will face some critical test. In Picard's ready room, Riker then tells the captain about objects appearing when, though, of on the planet, So Picard is a bit skeptical about Riker's observation and orders Counselor Troy to join him and Riker on an away mission, which results in an awkward reunion on the bridge between Troy and Riker, her Imsadi. Which, as a side note, there's a book of the Imsadi, and it's like one of the most acclaimed books out there, of Star Trek. Which I want to read that. I want to read that one. So Picard meets Soren, but Soren immediately becomes fearful since there is a Betazoid at the meeting. Troy assures Soren that she is only half Betazoid and that she can only sense strong emotions in people. She then feels a strong flood of emotions coming from somewhere, namely pain and loneliness. This character here is the one that I can feel that it absorbs almost all the troubles and negativity that flows around the Starfleet and the people that try to go against the Starfleet and all that. So, yeah. It's what I've noticed so far. So Picard begins to leave and tell Soren that the Federation may not protect Farpoint anymore, to which Soren says that the station may become vulnerable to species like the Ferengi, to which Picard replies, "Fine, let's hope they find you as tasty as they did their past associates." So later on the Enterprise, Riker finally meets Data in the ship's holodeck, where the android in his forest program trying to whistle. Pop goes the weasel. So he requests Data's participation in the away mission, to which Data agrees. They then proceed to discuss Data's background and his studies at the academy, admitting that while superior to humans in many ways, he would rather be human. So moving on to Act 7, as Riker and Data discuss the intricacies of the holodeck technology, Wesley enters the holodeck excited about the potential of the technology, but accidentally falls into a pond, only to be rescued single-handedly by Data. They exit as Picard is walking down the corridor, writing that he is leading an away mission down the Deneb 4. Down to Deneb 4. And Wesley apologetically dripping water on the corridor carpet. Wesley tells Picard that he thinks he should find something to dry himself up with, and the Enterprise captain tells him that that would be a good idea. On Deneb 4, Riker then leads a team to explore more of Farpoint Station with Yar, LaForge, Data, and Troy. They go underground into tunnels where Troy again senses great despair and pain. In Sink Bay, Wesley tells his mother about all the areas he has been and seen thus far on the Enterprise D, including the low-gravity gymnasium, which that seems like a great idea. If only this could be a thing in the real world, we wouldn't get that tired, if I might say so myself. And remarks that it would be difficult to become bored on this ship. The Enterprise is full of good things. It always has something new to explore and showcase, At this point, we think that the, Enterprise for me is like this flying spacecraft that could be told as a hotel with so many intricacies and features, So he then asks his mother to let him see the bridge and promises he will merely remain on the turbo lift, just taking a look around. Beverly reminds him that the children coming onto the bridge is against Captain's standing orders, but eventually relents. Crusher hadn't met Picard since her husband died and goes with Wesley to see him on the bridge. Taken back, Picard lets Wesley in the bridge, though suddenly an unexpected ship appears. So Act 8, moving on from that, all that information that I've already summarized, we can go that Soren insists he does not know the ships or expect one. The ship scans the Enterprise and begins attacking the surface on the net 4. Though it targets only the old Bandit City rather than the station, on the surface, the away team loses communication and exits the base, into the city on hearing of the attack. Riker orders Yar, Troy, and the Forge to beam back up to the ship and tell Data that he wants to survey the damage on the old city. Troy protests this, standing that Riker could get hurt, but he overrules her, telling her she has her orders and to carry them out. The 3 officers beam up, and Riker and Data proceed. The conspicuous target attack leads Picard to suggest that Soren may have more information about the aliens than he is letting on, and orders Riker to seize him, admittedly illegally, so that they may interrogate him further. After he confirms with Troy that attacking the ship will not violate the Prime Directive and order phasers prepared, Q appears, mocking Picard by telling him that savage humans never seem to follow even their own rules. Rules are there, and they're sometimes broken. We can't deny that. So moving on to the penultimate act, Act 9, Q says he expected force from Picard when the motives of the ship should be clear. Picard orders the Enterprise in between the ships and the planet, but Worf says his helm control has been lost. So in the Bandit City, Riker and Data find Soren, who is now willing to explain. However, he is transported out of his office while he screams in horror. Riker reports into Picard about Soren's abduction, speculating that Q might be responsible, for many things. Q mocks the crew for not knowing who abducted Soren, but then Troy reports a feeling of satisfaction. Emanating from the alien vessels, Riker and Data return to the Enterprise. Q goads Picard into ordering an away team into the vessel, which Picard resists, but Riker volunteers, independent of Q's mocking. In the last act of the whole episode, goes Riker and the away team beam over to the entity and see that its corridor are exactly the same as the underground tunnel on Deneb 4. They find Soren suspended in mid-air, being tortured. Riker and Data fire their phasers and free him. Suddenly, the ship pulses. Picard attempts to beam the away team back from the entire entity, but it's unsuccessful. Q returns, now wearing the uniform of a Starfleet captain, and informs him that the time of the test has expired. Picard begs Q to let him rescue his people, even to the point of promising to do whatever he says if he does so. And at that exact moment, the away team is transported back to the Enterprise, and Q and Picard appear ready to honor that hastily made bargain. However, Troy points out that it was the entity, not Q, that returned the away team to the Enterprise. Soon the captain realizes the truth. The Bandi have captured an alien life form, a space vessel life form, and have constructed Farpoint Station and its goods by feeding of its power. Feeding it the energy it needs just enough to keep it alive so it can morph into any shape Farpoint wants. The ship in space is not actually a ship, but rather the alien life form's mate. Picard assists the captured alien by using the Enterprise's phasers to deliver an energy beam to the entity, allowing it to break free of its bonds, thus solving the mystery, much to Q's dismay. Q then retreats, though he hints that it won't be the last time the crew sees him. Obviously, I'm pretty sure Q, for the majority of the whole show, we're going to see him quite more often than not, So quoting here, Captain's Log, Stardate 411742.2. The agreements for rebuilding a Farpoint Station has been completed per my instructions. Which the Farpoint mission over, the crew settles in. Picard asks Riker if he has a problem. Riker replies that he wonders if all their missions will be like their first. Picard assures him that he doesn't think so. They should be much more interesting. Picard orders LT LaForge to set a course. And quoting here, let's see what's out there. Engage. So, I think if we compare the original series to what we have now with the Next Generation that happened a few years later, I can say this is a great startup of an episode. It has so much information. We are already in a point in time where we already know about the Enterprise. We know all this kinds of stuff, even though there's different models. But we already are acquainted to what Star Trek is, to the Enterprise, to what the Federation is, the USS and all that, and the different ranks of the people in the Starfleet. And it does well to do a sequel series, for what we had and that questionable cartoon that came before it. It's a great show. I'm eager to see, like how Picard says, what's out there. I would like to engage to see what's out there and get myself acquainted to the 7 seasons of the Next Generation. I'm really looking forward to this. As a Star Wars fan that has a lot of connection and has been adjusted to a lot of action, this philosophical space drama show actually brings me to a different perspective of how space sci-fi can be, portrayed. And this being a bit more realistic, it sure makes you feel a bit more connected. Rather than Star Wars, it just purely entertains you. Purely. It's pure entertainment. Pure fantasy. Which I'm more into. I prefer fantasy space fantasy than science fiction in a way, because I'm all for space. Whatever's in space, I'll consume it. Hence why in the anime world, I loved a lot Gundams and stuff like that. But that's a whole discussion for a whole nother day. So like I said, let's see what's out there and let's engage. I'm really, really looking forward. So, yeah. Hope I can get you guys some other information on the later episodes. Just letting you know, the Star Trek stuff won't be that often. This is a pure, mainly Star Wars show. But sometimes I'll break it off to talk a little bit about other topics. In this case, Star Trek, or video games, or something like that, or talk about the media and Hollywood in general and those type of news. But for the most part, this is a Star Wars show. Don't get yourself too excited that I'll be full on, head on with Star Trek. Even though there is going to be a quite good balance between Star Wars and Star Trek. We're going to have both shows and both franchises head to head on my show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I'm Andrew Zark, and I'm signing out. Hope you can hear me from the far reaches of the galaxy. Live long and prosper. Let's roll that outro.
Unite for the sound revolution in Galactic ChatWave Radio. Support Anirban Zark's original tunes, the polls of our online radio station, and keep the news blazing like Beskar.
Click, donate, and hit that PayPal button and join the watch. Keep the tunes alive. This is the way.